If you're autistic like me, you're well aware that neurotypical people are born with the ability to socialise, which may lead you to conclude that we are not capable of socialising or getting along with people in general. I can promise you this is absolutely not true. How do I know this? Not just from research, but also from personal experience. I worked in sales for 20 years and I had to rely on self-help books and psychology to help me get through, because advice that neurotypical people would work for them but not for me. That's what I found. And so one of the books that I read was called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yes, I know it sounds very corny, but bear in mind it was written in the 1930s. In this episode, I'll be talking about Chapter 2 of the book, which is entitled The Secret to Dealing with People. I did cover Chapter 1 in the episode prior to this. If you want to combine these two together, it will make more sense if you listen to that one before you listen to this one, but feel free to listen to this one by itself. The previous episode of this podcast and Chapter 1 of the book really is talking about what not to do, which is, in short, just not to criticise people. That's the briefest way I can explain it. So now we're talking about what to do instead. And to begin with, what Dale Carnegie talks about is something that I need reminding of a lot, because I notice, especially in this day and age, in people's behaviour, we're noticing with the interconnectedness of the internet that we're seeing more prevalence of groups of people that used to be the minority. Things like conspiracy theories used to be very different to what they are now. And you see people that believe that the earth is flat. Now, if you're one of these people, I'm not having a go at you for that. I'm really acknowledging why you might be doing this. And what Dale Carnegie talks about it. It's really about the desire to be important. And I'm highlighting this to not pick on anyone. Just to bear in mind, like he points out that people have big palaces and houses to feel important. There's people who have titles. There's so many examples you can think of are a way of people feeling important. And as I said, I wonder sometimes what drives some of these people to believe these things. And as I said, the groups, they get bigger and bigger. And that's the thing. That's it. You think about it. You might not agree with what they have to say, but at least, I guess, if we can understand why they would be motivated, really. And what I'm going to say next might sound very simple, but it's a lot more complicated than it first seems. Because what we're really talking about is giving people appreciation and praise, really, is what we're talking about. But the majority of people, when they do that, they do it insincerely. They do it in a way that is false. And this is what this whole chapter really is trying to drive home, is being able to give honest and sincere appreciation of a person. It's a lot harder than you might think it is, because as I said, so many people will do it this really poor way. They will just say something, they'll pick a compliment, or they'll just say, oh, you're really good, or you're fantastic and you can do it. All of these things, the toxic positivity and so forth. But they're not true things. They're just taking platitudes and throwing them around. Whereas if you want to do it the right way, you really have to pick something that is absolutely true. And I remember this when I started to get to know my partner. She lived in Finland and I lived in Australia. And I was really driving that home with her, where I would say something nice or I'd give her some kind of a compliment. And I remember, because she's Finnish, of course, they're a lot more straightforward than many of us in Australia are. And she would just ask me why I said it, whatever it was. She would say, oh, what makes you say that? Whereas in Australia, we'd probably just take the compliment and not say anything, but she would ask me why. And so I would explain. I'd give a particular compliment and she'd go, why do you say that? What, essentially, why do you think that's true, kind of, but without being rude. And so therefore I would explain. And I noticed in that process what was going on is that if I happened to say a false thing which I never did. But if I happened to, I would have come undone, because her asking, why do you say that? You know, if I said to her, I don't know, can't think of an example, something that's just not true. Like, I don't know, just think of a compliment that you think that would apply to somebody. Look, one of her insecurities is about being quiet. Well, she's finished, what do you expect? But, you know, let's just say that I tried to say that she's talkative or outgoing or something. I know this is stupid, but let's just say I said that. And she's like, oh, what? Why do you say that? What example would I give of a person who's quiet and doesn't say much? Right? You see what I'm getting at? I know it's not a very good example, but this is what I'm trying to drive home here. And it's not just that, there's other issues. People are trying to get someone to do something, and they think, going back to the previous chapter, criticising or pointing out what they're not doing is going to get what they want, and it obviously doesn't. People will dig their heels in. And there's a thing in psychology known as shaping, which is where what you do is point out the positive things that someone does, and then that's how they feel appreciated. So my partner and I, one thing that we do is wherever we can think of it, we will thank the other person for a task that they've done. It might sound stupid and ridiculous, but, you know, I'm often very sick. It takes me a whole week to make one of these episodes sometimes. There's days where a whole day where I can't do anything. I have no energy. I'm quite sick. On one of those days, still, I will drag myself to the kitchen and do the dishes. And then my partner will, when she comes home, she'll just go, oh, thanks for doing the dishes, because it is a big deal. But conversely, if she beats me to it, comes home, I haven't done it, and she just does the dishes, I will say, thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for cooking dinner. Whatever it is, she mowed the lawn. There's a reason, you know, I don't have enough energy to do that. And I'll say, oh, thanks for mowing the lawn. And I did this the other day, and I could tell that it was the first time I'd done it, because she looked at me surprised, because she'd not heard me thank her for mowing the lawn. It sounds stupid. What you think, why would I do this? But you hear it all the time in relationships where people will say, oh, you never thank me, you never say you love me, all these kind of things. And the person's like, well, didn't know you needed that, or what have you. And the same in work, like or difficult children, you know, that you're trying to get them to do something you want, and they mess around and what have you. Pointing out and thanking them for some little thing that they do will go a really, really long way. And once again, I'd like to point out that flattery is 100% false. It's easy to do, anyone can do it, and unfortunately, most people will know you're doing it if you do try. They might not say anything, but they will know. Deep down, they're like, oh yeah, you're just saying that. But when you give an honest feedback, an honest appreciation to somebody, they will know. They will know for the most part that it's coming from a place of sincerity, and that's the only way to do it, because appreciation is truly sincere. Here is apparently a quote from General Alvaro Obregón. I say apparently because he is Mexican, and apparently this is written in his bust, but it's probably written in Spanish. So this is Dale Carnegie quotes this in his book, and many people quote him as saying this, but if you read the book, he's quoting this general. This is the quote. Don't be afraid of the enemies that attack you. Be afraid of the friends who flatter you. That's an army general saying that. So this chapter ends with principle 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. And so that's really what we've talked about today, is about being sincere, honest appreciation, because realising or recognising that people want to be appreciated, they want to be recognised, they want to feel important. And if you do it in the sincere way, if you try to weaponise this, and if you watch some neurotypical people, they might do it in this really charming. If they do it in this really charming way, and they smile and they get you to smile and everything, if you don't think for a second, is this really true? You could be led to believe that they might be telling the truth. But I would encourage you, if you're the one on the receiving end of this, just think, is it really true what they're saying? How do they know this? There's lots of things, right? But you think, don't copy it. This is what I'm really getting to. If you see that, be wary that that's not us. Don't try to copy that. Do this. The sincere, realizing that people want to feel important. And faking it isn't the way. This is not a skill to be weaponized, because if you're just using this as a way to manipulate people, you're not really doing this. And the reason I'm just saying that, by the way, is that I saw a Reddit post about it. If you ask certain questions about books, type it in Google. If it's not something that's going to generate a whole lot of ads, you will probably find some results. And one result I found about this book was someone asking on Reddit, oh, is it worth reading this book? And like overwhelmingly people were like, yes, worth reading the book, definitely. But then one person claimed the psychopath in their town read this book and oh no, then it became hell for the rest of us. And they're implying that the book provided some kind of insight that the psychopath didn't know about and then started to exploit. I would challenge that and say they're not really. Chapter 1, don't criticise people. What did they not criticise people and weaponise that? Sincere, honest appreciation. How do you weaponise that? You don't. You just, all that they've taken, if they have it all, if this story is even true, which I highly doubt, is that they've learnt to flatter, which is not what the book is telling you at all. So I just wanted to challenge that. If you've got any questions about anything I've said here, please pop them in the comments below. Or if you'd like to share your story about your implementation of a particular skill, that especially if it's something that neurotypical people don't do, or if you've been doing this and you found it to be successful for you, I'd love to hear about it. Take care out there.